Get ready to see some of the most bizarre expressions and unexpected reactions from people in court, including the story of a real-life killer who dressed up as a clown and did something so horrific that it left everyone in the courtroom in shock. Let's talk about real cases that have made history. Let's start with Jolene Cummings, a 34-year-old hairdresser and mother of 3 who disappeared in May 2018 in Yulee, Florida. She was well loved by her family and friends, who quickly noticed something was wrong when she failed to show up to pick up her children on Mother's Day, something completely out of character for her. The concern led to an intense police investigation, which soon revealed a series of shocking and disturbing details. Attention turned to Kimberly Kessler, Jolene's co-worker at the Tangles hair salon. Kimberly used the fake name Jennifer Sibbert and lived a life marked by mystery. During the investigation, it was discovered that Kimberly had a murky past. She had disappeared in 2004 from her hometown in Pennsylvania and had been living as a fugitive ever since, frequently changing identities. This revelation made her connection to Jolene's disappearance even more suspicious. Authorities found Jolene's car abandoned in a parking lot, and security camera footage showed Kimberly parking the vehicle before leaving on foot. At the hair salon, police found bloodstains that matched Jolene's DNA, indicating that a violent crime had taken place. Additionally, Kimberly was seen purchasing items such as trash bags and an electric knife prior to Jolene's disappearance, further adding to the evidence against her. Despite extensive searches, Jolene's remains were never found. However, the circumstantial evidence was enough to charge Kimberly with murder. During her trial, Kimberly displayed erratic and disturbing behavior, both in jail and in court. She threw feces at the walls of her cell, refused to cooperate with legal proceedings, and frequently disrupted the trial with angry outbursts, even accusing her own defense of conspiring against her. In December 2021, Kimberly Kessler was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The absence of Jolene's body made the experience even more painful for her family, who expressed anguish at the lack of closure. The case has left a deep scar on the local community and raised questions about how Kimberly managed to avoid detection for so many years by living under an assumed identity. The disappearance of Jolene Cummings and the actions of Kimberly Kessler remain a tragic example of the devastating consequences of crime, leaving a family scarred by grief and a community searching for answers and justice. Before we continue, please check if you are already subscribed to our channel. In this space, we bring you a series of videos about criminals who shook the world, and you don't want to miss any stories, do you? Subscribe, and thank you very much for following us. The incident in question took place on May 26, 2017, in Portland, Oregon, and involved Jeremy Joseph Christian, a man who launched a racist attack on a crowded train, with devastating consequences. The incident began when Christian, known for his extremist views and aggressive behavior, began shouting racist and Islamophobic insults at 2 young women. One of them was wearing a hijab, which appeared to trigger the attacker's outburst of anger. Witnesses described how Christian's tirade became increasingly violent and threatening, creating a climate of panic on the train. 2 people intervened to try to defuse the situation and protect the young women, Taliesin Murden Namkaimesh, a 23-year-old man, and Ricky Best, an Army veteran and father of 4, 53. A third man, Micah Fletcher, 21, also tried to calm the situation. However, Christian reacted brutally, pulling out a knife and attacking the 3 men. Taliesin and Ricky were fatally stabbed, while Micah was seriously injured but survived. After the attack, Christian fled the train but was captured by police about a mile later. The impact of the crime was devastating, not only for the victims' families, but also for the local community, who were left in shock. During Christian's trial, which began in January 2020, the victims' families gave emotional statements describing the pain and loss the crime had caused. In court, Christian displayed disturbing behavior, shouting insults and threats, showing complete disregard for the lives he had taken and the pain he had caused. The evidence presented during the trial, including testimony and security camera footage, was overwhelming. In February 2020, Jeremy Christian was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and other crimes related to the attack. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 25 years for other charges. And now let's move on to the case of John Wayne Gacy, known as the Killer Clown, one of the most infamous criminals in the history of the United States, and his trajectory is marked by his ability to deceive, manipulate and commit horrific crimes under the guise of an ordinary citizen. During the 1970s, Gacy managed to build a seemingly perfect life, earning recognition in the local community of Norwood Park, Illinois. He was a successful businessman, owner of a construction company that hired young people, and was also active in local politics. More than that, he was involved in social causes and even performed as a clown at children's parties and community events. Gacy used the disguise of Pogo the Clown to approach his victims, creating a public image of sympathy and trust. However, behind this image of a successful man, there was a much darker reality. Gacy was convicted of killing 33 young men and boys between 1972 and 1978. Most of his victims were between the ages of 14 and 21, and he would lure these young men to his home, where he would kidnap, torture, and kill them. Gacy committed these murders meticulously, and his methods varied, but he often used handcuffs to restrain his victims, sometimes induced asphyxiation, and in other cases, killed them in even more brutal ways. Worst of all, he kept the bodies of his victims in his home, burying them in the basement and backyard. The first clue that led investigators to Gacy came from the disappearance of Robert Beach, a 15-year-old boy who disappeared in December 1978. Before his disappearance, Beach was last seen with Gacy, which raised suspicions. As police began investigating the case, they discovered that Gacy had been involved in other disappearances of young people, and the connection to Beach became a crucial point in starting to turn the man's life around. But it was only when investigators noticed a strong and unusual smell coming from Gacy's home that they began to suspect something even more macabre. Initially, they thought it was the smell of sewage, but they soon realized that it was a sign of something much more horrific. In 1978, Gacy was arrested, and after being questioned, he coldly confessed the details of his crimes. The investigation revealed a terrifying scenario. The bodies of 29 victims were found buried under Gacy's home, in a confined space, which further reinforced the idea of his detailed planning and attempt to hide the crimes. In addition, 4 more bodies were found in nearby rivers, which showed the lengths he was willing to go to erase any trace of his actions. After his arrest, Gacy was charged with a series of horrific crimes, including murder, kidnapping, and sexual abuse. He remained indifferent to the suffering he had caused, and even during his trial, he attempted to manipulate those around him while maintaining his demeanor as a respectable businessman. During his trial, Gacy pleaded guilty to all 33 murders, and the case quickly became one of the most horrific and controversial in American criminal history. The trial also brought to light the realization that for years, Gacy had managed to deceive his victims and society. Many of his neighbors, friends, and even his own family members had no idea of his true nature. Gacy's trial and subsequent death penalty conviction sparked a heated debate about justice and the death penalty. He was convicted in 1980 and spent 14 years on death row in an attempt to delay his execution. During his time in prison, Gacy attempted to manipulate the media and authorities, maintaining a disdain for his victims and the suffering he had caused. He also sought to ensure that his wealth and fortune would be preserved for his family, showing an even more selfish side to his personality. His defense attorney, Karen Conti, revealed in statements that Gacy was more concerned with financial matters than with the fact that he could be executed at any moment. During his years in prison, Gacy showed no remorse. In the final moments of his life, he was given the chance to choose his last meal, and he opted for something simple, such as fried chicken, fried shrimp, French fries, and fresh strawberries. There was nothing symbolic or meaningful about his request. It reflected his disconnection from the gravity of his situation and his indifference to his impending death. This attitude was a reflection of his manipulative personality, showing that he did not see the weight of his crimes as relevant. Even after being convicted, he preferred to spend his time with social visits, chatting carelessly, as if his execution were just a detail of his routine. On May 10, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was finally executed by lethal injection at the Menard Correctional Facility in southern Illinois. The execution was a tense moment, with a great division in society, with groups demonstrating outside the prison. Some supported the death penalty, while others questioned its application. However, when Gacy was taken to be executed, he did not appear nervous, as one would expect from someone about to lose his life. He was transported by helicopter to Stateville Penitentiary, where he awaited his end. Protesters gathered outside, debating the fate of the criminal and the meaning of the death penalty. According to reports, Gacy expressed no remorse in his final hours, and his final moments of life were described by some as untroubled. Accounts of his last words vary, with some saying he uttered something crude, such as, "for my ass," while others claim he blamed the state for his execution. What is clear is that with his death, the cycle of terror he caused came to an end. His execution brought to a close a history of heinous crimes, but the legacy of Gacy's suffering and victims still resonates today. The case of John Wayne Gacy became a landmark in the study of serial killers, and his story continues to be discussed to this day, raising questions about the nature of evil, justice, and the impact of an individual's actions on society. The fact that for years he managed to hide his true nature, deceiving even those closest to him, makes him one of the most terrifying criminals in modern history. The memory of his victims, who were brutally murdered and buried beneath Gacy's home, remains a reminder of the human capacity for cruelty, and his execution, while ending his reign of terror, did not erase the horrors he caused. So, what did you guys think of this story? I know this case is chilling and makes us reflect on the depths of human nature. If you were as impacted as I was, please leave a like below. This not only helps the channel grow, but also makes me bring you even more intriguing cases like this one. Oh, and if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel right now. That way, you won't miss any new videos. There's a lot of interesting stuff coming up, and you'll want to follow it all closely. And of course, leave your comment. I want to know what you think about this case, if you have any opinions or if you've already heard of this story. Feel free to suggest other cases or topics you'd like to see here. Your participation is super important for the growth of the channel and for me to always bring you the best content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video with another fascinating case. See you then.